McLaren, that beard's looking great, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah, I grew it last night.
I'm always envious of people who can grow beards like that. I can go a month and not have, it looks like a 5 o'clock shadow.
There's Mr. Duncan. We'll give it one more minute. I always find this silence when there's 20 people on a Zoom call and no one's talking.
Would never have been like this in the before times.
Yeah, exactly. I'm excited to get these public policy meetings back in person.
Yeah.
All right, well, we will we'll get going. More people are going to continue to come in as they normally do. I want to thank everybody for being on today. We got some pretty awesome topics. We've got a number of our local elected officials from the State House that are here to kind of break down what this past session looked like. I provided them each questions to kind of guide what their presentation is going to look like. We have a special guest, and I believe a first-time guest, Senate Minority Leader Tim Knope is joining us out from the Bend area. So thank you so much, Senator, for being on and providing some insight from the the Republican Senate side. So from there, I'll hand it over to Jeff to do some brief introductions of our 4 elected speakers, and then after that, we're going to have some discussion and questions from our 2 individuals that are running for Marion County District Attorney, Spencer Todd and Paige Clarkson. So I'll hand it off to you, Jeff.
Great, thank you. Zachary, the reason it's always quiet on these things is you hit that record button and all of a sudden everyone goes, not talking, there's anything being said. So I always find that interesting. Everyone's chatting until recording in session, everyone zips it. Anyway, good morning, everyone. I don't know about you, but the sunshine outside, it always just makes my day a little bit better. Doesn't make it perfect, but it starts it out nice, certainly. And happy to see everyone here on the call. As Zachary said, we're going to start out with with 4 elected legislators that are here. We're pretty blessed at the chamber to have good relationships on both sides of the aisle. I think it's always important to have relationships on both sides to be able to have good conversation. Doesn't mean we necessarily always need to agree on things, but to be able to be civil and have conversation, in my mind, is a blessing, and the chamber really exudes that, and I'm happy to be part of that. After the 4 legislators are done, Zachary said we're going to hear from the 2 individuals running for the district attorney here in Marion County. We have some kind of prepared questions that we're going to present them, and then we'll be good to hear from both of them. Finally, just a little housekeeping. In lieu of the self-introductions that are awkwardly done over Zoom, feel free to put your business name, contact information, things of that nature in the chat if you would like. We're happy to collect that and make sure that people have that information as we move forward. And then finally, questions for whether it be the representatives, senators, or the DA candidates. Feel free to put that in the chat as well. We do our best to try and get those captured and asked and answered while everyone's on the call here. So with that, good morning. Let me pull up some quick bios real quickly. All right. Joining us this morning, we have Representative and City Council President Chris Hoy. Good morning, Chris. Chris earned his bachelor's degree of political science at Willamette University in 1987. Chris's career, career experience includes working as an undersheriff in Clackamas County Sheriff's Office. He serves as vice chair of the Mid-Willamette Valley Homeless Alliance. Chris was first elected to City Council, Salem City Council in 2018, and was appointed to House District 21 late last year to replace Brian Clem, excuse me. Good morning. Good morning,
Morning.
Raquel. Raquel Moore Green, Representative Moore Green. Raquel has been active in the local community for 27 years. Raquel has an extensive work resume, including being a small business owner. She has worked for Senator Jackie Winters and Representative, now Commissioner Kevin Cameron, in various roles, and brings this experience to the Capitol. She has had the honor of serving as representative in House District 19, which includes parts of South Salem, Almsville, and Turner since 2019. Good morning, Raquel. Senator Deb Patterson is here. Reverend Dr. Deborah Patterson is an ordained clergywoman in the United Church of Christ, currently serving a 130-year-old rural church here in Mid-Willamette Valley. She represents District 10, which includes South Salem, West Salem, Monmouth, Independence, Turner, and Almsville, and parts of Four Corners and unincorporated East Salem. Good morning.
Good morning.
And we also have Senator Tim Knope from Bend, as Zachary indicated earlier. Good morning, Tim. Tim is a native Oregonian who has lived in Central Oregon for over 40 years. He and his wife, Melissa, have been married for 35 years, have 4 children and 2 grandchildren. Congratulations on that. I think those are probably more important than most of the things we talk about. I digress. His background includes nearly 20 years as a small business owner and community service, as a former Little League coach and board member of the Bend Chamber of Commerce, as well as serving as a current board member of affordable housing nonprofit First Story. Tim is the executive vice president of the Central Oregon Builders Association and executive director of Building Partners for Affordable Housing. Tim previously served in the legislature from 1999 through 2005 for 3 terms, including 1 as Oregon House Majority Leader. Tim was elected to his first term in Oregon State Senate in November of 2012, elected Deputy Republican Leader in 2014, and elected Senate Minority Leader in 2021. Senate District 27 encompasses Central Oregon communities of Bend, Redmond, Tumalo, which has a great Tumalo feed company there, by the way, Sisters, Black Butte, Eagle Crest, and parts of rural Deschutes County. Tim, thank you for being here as well. So with that, why don't we get started? We've got pulling up the wrong one. Why don't we start out with our legislators? And with that, Representative Hoy, would you mind kind of going over a review of the short session, kind of the things that you felt you accomplished, and some good key takeaways, things to probably look forward to the future?
To do so. Good morning, everybody. It's nice to be with you today. So yeah, this, as you know, I got appointed in December and had just the Friday before was sworn in the Friday before the one-day session. And so this is my second session, so I'm a serious veteran now. But the 35-day session it's everything that everybody tells you it is, which is a whirlwind and kind of surreal. Goes really fast. But the good news is I was able to get one of my bills passed and signed into law. Actually, this Monday, the governor signed it, and it's a bill who I was really pleased to have Rep. Moore Green and Senator Patterson sign on as chief co-sponsors, and Representative Evans and Representative Alonzo Leon also signed on as sponsors. And that's a bill that would require the state to lease property to the city of Salem, underutilized or unutilized state property within the city limits, to allow us to locate some micro-shelter communities. As you know, we've been having a difficult time finding places to put our micro-shelter communities, which are managed, basically managed individual shelters that have proven to be quite successful, but we just haven't been able to find spaces to put them. So this bill would require the state to work with the city to lease us some of the land. And there's a lot of state land within the city, $2.1 billion of real market value for those who like numbers. There's a lot of property within the city limits of Salem. And so that bill passed, and the governor signed it a couple of days ago. So Thank you to my colleagues who helped make that happen. I really appreciate it. I'm going to focus. My other bill did not get a hearing. It died in the Rules Committee where it went to begin with, and it was really a stretch that it was ever going to be passed. But I'm really hopeful that it got a good conversation started and that somebody will be able to pick up that ball in the next session. And that is a bill that would require a payment in lieu of taxes for the city of Salem from the state. As I mentioned a minute ago, there's about $2.1 billion worth of real market value property owned by the state within the city of Salem. That's about, I can't remember the math off the top of my head. It's $5.1 million out of our city general fund that we are not realizing if those properties were owned and we're in private ownership. So there's a big burden on our public safety services here in the city by the state being here, but with the state, especially the state hospital and the state prisons, our fire department, but also certainly police and 911 are really overburdened by responding to state facilities. And so this would have required the state to help out with the payment in lieu of taxes, which is a common scheme used in state capitals throughout the country. We just don't have it here currently for our city. I know there are some other governments within our area who do get a payment in lieu of taxes from the state, but so far we have not been able to do that for the city. Interestingly, the state has helped the city with public safety services in the past. It was when the wings were built on the Capitol building in, I believe it was 1976 or 77, they bought a fire truck for the city. But that fire truck is no longer in service and we're due for some more help. So that bill, hopefully we'll be able to go forward in the next session when there's a little bit more time to really consider something like that. And so that's sort of a plea to any of my colleagues who are on the call who would like the information that we gathered. Would be happy to work with you on that and share that. So I know we don't have a lot of time this morning, so I'm going to really bust through a couple of things. I'm going to focus on things that were sort of before the two committees I was on. Those are behavioral health and housing, which are two things that are very important to me and also very important to the city of Salem, given our homeless situation and others. I'm good. How are those? I'm fine, Nick. How are you? You're not on mute, Dad, Betty. Anyway, so we were able to get $1.9 million for our new navigation center that's going to be opening up. We had some escalating costs just due to the rising cost of everything these days. We kind of had a gap in funding, so we were able to get 1.9 million to finish off the navigation center. We got an additional 2.5 million for shelter services for the city. And we also got 1.5 million to finish your Quinn Hall, which is a permanent supportive housing site over on the North Campus that I've talked to you about before. And this one is, even though it's the smallest amount, I think it might be have the most obvious impact. We got $750,000 for cleanup. So that's for trash services, vehicles, things like that, to be able to help clean up just the impacts of homelessness within the city. So that's $750,000. I met with city staff yesterday on ways that we might be putting that to use here in the near future. You'll probably see something on a council agenda in the very near future to try to be more proactive in dealing with some of this stuff, because as you know, as things are left to linger, it just turns problematic really fast. And so we're hoping to put a program in place that will prevent that from happening like it does now. The other thing regarding homelessness is Polk County received $1 million for coordination of homeless services, which is going to be really huge. It's going to impact the Salem area significantly in a really good way. And we're really excited to support that application. I don't know if you're aware, but in Polk County over in Falls City, they have the highest rate of homeless students within the entire state. I think the last number I saw was 42% of their students are homeless, which is just a staggering number when you think about it. It is a small district, but still, when you think of that percentage of students being homeless, it's mind-boggling. So this is going to really help with that. The other thing I just wanted to mention before I pass it off to my colleagues is we also, which aren't related to my two committees, but are directly impacted here in the city, 2.4 million for Marion Polk Food Share, and then also $545,000 for Salem Municipal Airport upgrades. So There's the, oh, and then also the big one, CAMS 3, which is the third phase of capital renovation, which is in my House District 21. So that's going to create up to 2,500 jobs to finish off the next round of remodel for the Capitol building, and that project will go through 2025, which is huge. 2,500 jobs right here in House District 21 is pretty exciting. So those are the things that I wanted to talk about this morning. Happy to take questions at the appropriate time.
Great. Thank you, Chris. Appreciate the quick update, and pretty staggering number, like you said out there, 42%. I had no idea. I have been out there, almost sold a couple properties, but tough place out there. Raquel, would you mind jumping in real quick? There she is. Yep, I see you. Thank you.
Good morning.
We got you loud and clear.
Good morning, Jeff, and good morning, everybody. It's nice to see you, and thanks again for having me this morning. Zachary, excuse me, sent me some questions, and I think I'd like I'll address those, but I want to start this morning to share with you some remarks that were made on the floor by one of my colleagues, Rep. Wilde, during the short session. And I think this helps to kind of set the stage for some of what took place in the House. And he said, budgets are moral documents that set priorities. With the revenue forecast, we have a generational opportunity to make some changes. And the public first deserved a process that would be open to them instead of decisions that were made largely in secret and mostly before session started. And you know, this is one legislator's opinion, and it was repeated throughout session, and it did set a tone for us that kind of, you know, made us step back and think hard about what we're doing as a body. And I'm very, very hopeful for the new leadership that we have in the House moving forward, and how we'll be able to address policy and budgets moving forward. So my two priority bills weren't quite as lucky as Rep. Hoy's. However, House Bill 4023 was a legislative fix to mergers and acquisitions, which was a bill that was passed in 2021. And that was House Bill 2362. And it related to business practices in around hospitals and medical centers and surgery centers. Unfortunately, it didn't even receive a hearing or a posting or anything, and it was so it died. And then my second bill was related to education, and it was House Bill 4022. Which required more transparency in school curriculums so that parents could better understand what their children are learning and ensure that they're receiving the fundamental skills as a priority. You may recall that in the 2021 session, the body, both sides passed a bill, and the governor signed into law a reduction in high school graduation standards. And so our students are no longer required to show proficiency in math, reading, and writing. And you know, this was particular bill was brought to me by a group of parents who were concerned, well, if that's not what they're learning, then what are they learning? And so this was you know, truly a transparency, very simple bill. However, it did not receive a hearing either. We did pull that bill, though, to the floor. And for those of you who may not be familiar with that particular legislative lever, if a bill is stuck in committee, you can actually, if you're on the floor, you can pull it from, they call it pull it from committee. So there's a motion made. It comes to the floor. It's not debatable, but a vote can be taken. And so we pulled the bill out of committee by a motion from the House floor. And at that point, it went up then for a vote for all members who were on the floor at the time, and it failed along party lines. And I felt that was very unfortunate, because I do believe that education isn't a partisan issue at all. It's we're all here for our kids, and we want the best for them. And we know that to grow the workforce and the professionals that we need, they need the skills, basic skills. So that was that. And then the REACH code, which was Senate Bill 1518, was another interesting bill that got passed. And the bill was ultimately amended so that it was a task force instead of the REACH code. And for those of you who might not be familiar with the REACH code, I can't do it complete justice, but it's a revamping of the building code. That would be a statewide revamping of the building code. It was eventually amended and passed to have a task force pulled together to look at the REACH code and to look at our current building codes and come back to the legislature with a recommendation. So that task force will identify and evaluate the policies related to building codes and building decarbonization for new and existing buildings that would ultimately enable the state to meet greenhouse gas emission reduction goals. And so it requires the task force to make recommendations to the interim committees on environment, of which I do sit on the Environment and Natural Resources Committee in the House side, before the 2023 regular session. So I fully expect in our legislative days, I know we've gotten the calendar, but I think they're November. No, actually it's early December. We'll probably receive a report from this particular task force with a recommendation for legislation around this. And, you know, anytime we add a regulation or a rule to our building codes, it just increases the cost of housing, regardless of what we're attempting to build anywhere in the state. Yesterday at the State of the County address, the commissioners just were talking about housing and the need for housing across the sector. You know, apartments, transitional, especially around the issue of our homeless, that we can't build our way out of the issue. We realize this. However, we need to have an inventory that will meet the needs and have flexibility. Salem has made so many inroads with addressing the homeless issue. And one of the comments made yesterday was that, you know, we have people ready to move out of the camps. They want to make that move. They want to make those changes. We can get them into the tiny homes, the tiny shelters, but then, you know, we're lagging on that transitional piece. And so here again, there was great frustration expressed by the county commissioners around this particular issue. So I think there's a greater conversation that needs to take place. I believe that it's not only codes, but it's land use as well. Our land use regulations have served Oregon and Oregonians very, very well for many, many years, but we're reaching that point in our population that it probably needs another look at. So that's the REACH code. And as far as our business community is concerned and the impacts that the legislation will have that was passed this session, I think the one piece that was passed that will have the greatest impact, and it will take some time to understand that impact and to assess what it is, but it was House Bill 4002, which was the ag overtime. And there's no doubt that individuals need to be paid fair wages and for overtime. But, you know, as many of us know here, agriculture is the #1 industry in Marion County. And as a matter of fact, Marion County is the #1 producer of ag in the state of Oregon. And so it's a huge piece of our economy. And it will be interesting to see what that impact is. I think we'll need to ensure that as we see the challenges that are presented by that we do take in consideration potential fixes to that legislation. Here again, a big piece of legislation had been worked on for about a year, but I'm not certain that it was ready for prime time, especially during a short session. And lastly, what do I predict for the next session, for the 2023 session? Well, I think hopefully we'll all be here. We'll all be in the building. Things will be open. And that's one of my biggest hopes, that we'll be fully reopened, and the community, things will be operating on a very in-person mode. And in general, I think anytime that we pass legislation that has a task force attached to it, such as the REACH code, we know that will bring back pieces of legislation to us. And my guess is we're going to see REACH code in 2023. So anybody who's interested in tracking that, those task force are, they're because they're in statute, you can participate in them. You may not be on them, but you can certainly monitor them, listen to the meetings, make comments as time goes on. I do think that we might see something along the lines of healthcare for all, and there could be some restructuring of the state hospital. My hope is that we continue to address the learning loss and the mental health effects of the virtual learning and the isolation and the compounded stresses of the pandemic on our children. There are early reports that some children are very hesitant to remove their masks, that there's this sense of being able to hide behind them. And for some, that's safety. For some, it's fear. But it's a concern, when we have a generation of children who have been affected from the pandemic, not unlike my parents who grew up in the Depression. And my mom saved every piece of aluminum foil. I mean, there was a time when that was a very precious commodity. I still save my used aluminum foil that is reusable. So anyway, and in closing, I would just like to say that we need to continue to address the needs of our businesses, our small businesses. They are the backbone of Oregon's economy, and especially here in Salem, provide jobs and services. We've invested an enormous amount of money into workforce, rightfully so. However, have we invested the money and the opportunities for our businesses to access some of these dollars to do some of the innovative things that they think need to be done? Our restaurant industry has been transformed, to say the least. And have we provided opportunities for them to make some of the adjustments and moving forward? So I think there's two pieces to that business investment moving forward. And so those are some of the things that I will continue to work on. Of course, actively involved with the behavioral health, being vice chair of the House Behavioral Health Committee. We have a work group by the name of the Behavioral Transformation Group that we're continuing to address the larger issues and the bigger picture at the state level. So I could go on forever. As you guys know, I want to thank you for the opportunity, and I look forward to any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Moore Green. I'm going to jump on a soapbox here for about 2 seconds. We talk a lot about natural resources right now. Oil is a huge issue, natural gas, gold, silver, those types of things. I just have to say, from my personal perspective, our greatest natural resource is kids, children, youth, the leaders of tomorrow. So when I hear things like what Representative Moore Green is saying about the schools and not getting any traction from a bipartisan thing, or what Representative Hoy mentions in Falls City, that is deeply troubling to me on a personal level. So man, just that's a hard thing for me to accept. Again, I'm going to hop off that soapbox, but it is wildly important, I think, and it should be to everyone. But that said, I'm going to hop down off that soapbox. I'm going to hand it over to Senator Patterson, please, for your input. Thank you.
Good morning, Jeff, and good morning, everyone. It's good to be here. And hi, Representative Hoy and Representative Moore Green. Nice to see you. And I don't know if my colleague Senator Knopp is here yet, but look forward to hearing from him momentarily. Jeff, before I begin with the questions that Zachary had sent, I'd just like to affirm that we all, no matter what party we're a part of, I couldn't agree with you more. Children are our future, and we have to invest in them. That's at every level. That's why I would really, this isn't an answer to the question, but childcare is so important, and we have to make it affordable. And as far as I'm concerned, and I think we all agree, that's early childhood learning. So the moment a baby is born, they're starting to learn. And our schools, they're critical. Our teachers, they've been stressed. Our parents have been super stressed. I'm a parent of a special needs child, and I'm telling you, this pandemic's been hard to help her learn, how to help her, And so anyway, I couldn't agree with you more. We've got to invest in our students and do everything we can to support them to succeed and help them be brave and mentally healthy and physically healthy. And that's how we have a strong community. But the first question was, what policy concepts that didn't pass this legislation do I anticipate seeing next year's legislation? Well, actually this year, I'm really, as others have mentioned, we really did accomplish a lot this year with the $400 million that we invested in housing to respond to homelessness and try to chip away at our affordable housing supply. And then we also invested $200 million in the workforce development here in Oregon and helping folks find good paying jobs. And then there are about 300,000 people who are at risk of losing their Medicaid health insurance because when the emergency is ending now. And so we built a bridge, we're building a bridge insurance program for them to try to, so that they don't lose their insurance. But one bill that didn't cross the finish line that I was really concerned about, I was a co-sponsor, I believe Rep. Moore Green was as well, was House Bill 4142, which would have expanded the crime of assault in the third degree to when someone assaults a healthcare worker. Sadly, it didn't cross the finish line. As you mentioned, I've been clergy for 30 years. I also, although I spent most of my years working in international healthcare advocacy and education, as a member of the clergy, I've seen so many healthcare workers and with nurses that I worked with who have really suffered in the workplace. And so that was an important bill, and I'm sorry we didn't get that across the finish line. Obviously we still have a lot to do moving forward. We still see too many people who are living under tarps. West Salem, I think, has 37 trailers over in the Wallace Marine Park area still. So there's a lot to be done there. We, as mentioned at the beginning, we have to help kids catch up and regain the losses in their education, and we have to support law enforcement to do their jobs effectively. I really support adding the 60 members to the Salem Police Department, and I would like to see us put together a task force. I serve on Veteran Affairs and Emergency Preparedness, and when we heard from the Oregon State Police that they have only 936 officers to cover the entire state of Oregon, that's not acceptable. We need to modernize our numbers, if not, equipment and other things as well. So, we really need to support our folks that are out there working on our behalf. So, those are some of the things that didn't pass. The second question was, what were my two priority bills this session? Like everybody else, everything didn't pass, obviously. So I had a pilot project, Senate Bill 1556, that would have provided funding for renters in affordable housing when the lease is ending and moving to market rate. So to assistance so they could pay the landlords the new rate. That I really feel every bill needs to be win-win. You can't just help the renters, you have to help the landlords too. So this would have been funding so that the renters could have paid the landlords the new rate. Would have just been a pilot project here in Salem and in Tualatin, but it didn't pass. And now it means that there's about 400 people who are at risk of losing their homes because they're on fixed incomes and may not be able to pay the increase in rent. So housing continues to be a real issue everywhere in so many ways. I hope we can figure something out to help them. The bill that did pass that I had was Senate Bill 1556, which helps with workforce development to develop basically a new professionalization for care workers. We're short in the state now 6,000 people who help people with the activities of daily livings in their homes, and this will create a certification for them. So sets in place that process. Don't want to spend too much time on that. How did we meet our goals this session? Gosh, it was really unprecedented. During this last year, we've had the pandemic, the end of the pandemic almost. We're almost there. And so many other things, the ice storms, the massive wildfires and everything. So we're trying to get the state back to normal and we're getting there. But there's still too many struggles. Working families the cost of things, small businesses struggling. And so I don't know, I think I'm going to skip ahead, but so many stuff has been covered here that I wrote out some answers, but, oh, hi, Senator Knope, nice to see you. Good morning. And we've got to invest in education and childcare and in job development. I'm going to keep on going on to the last question. It was about the REACH codes. This bill would have, I don't think I wasn't a sponsor of it, but my understanding of it, this bill would have allowed cities, if they wanted to increase the requirements related to environmental aspects of housing, making housing more green and more resilient in case of wildfires, for example, and things like that. Well, as Representative Moore Green said, it wasn't quite ready yet. It wasn't ready for prime time. And so the bill was wisely, I think, amended to make it into a task force on resilient, efficient buildings. And I think in business, what are strong businesses but resilient? What are strong businesses but efficient? And so, for us to do that in housing, to be smart about our housing too, it makes a lot of sense. So, and again, I think it's important that there be local control as well. I agree with my colleague from across the aisle. Senator Knope is a smart man, and I often hear about local control, and I think that's right in this case. That that what you need for a building code in different parts of the states it's going to differ. So I'm really excited that there's a task force that's been put on this to work on this, and so I look forward to working with my colleagues, all my colleagues in the building, and it's been really nice as the pandemic started to wind down to see people more in person, and I look forward to more of that in the future. So glad to be here today, and I'm going to pass it to my friend across the aisle, Senator Knope.
Thank you, Senator Patterson. Senator Knope, thank you for joining us today, and we look forward to hearing from you as well.
Thank you, Jeff. It's great to be with you in the city of Salem. I'm here at the Capitol, and although I live and my district is in Central Oregon, it seems like this is my second home. I've spent several years here over the last 10 years when you add up all the days that I've been here. So great to be with the chamber this morning. And I think it's really important to, when we look back on the session and what happened and what didn't happen, I think it's important to recognize that as the legislative branch, and you're talking to legislators here, it's really important that throughout this pandemic that the public recognizes that most all the decisions were made by one person, and that's the governor. And we need to make sure that the legislature plays a more significant role in the future in these emergencies, whether it's a pandemic or an earthquake or what have you. Because most of the state wouldn't have made those exact same decisions. And so my colleague mentioned local control. And I think that's really important. For instance, last fall, the governor said, yes, I'm going to let the school districts determine what their masking policies is or are going to be. And then when they didn't do what the governor wanted, she took back that power and said, no, we're going to go ahead and institute statewide masking policy. So I don't want a state where your freedom depends on whether or not you agree with those in power. And so I think it's really important that the legislature move forward in asserting itself as the third branch of government. And so one of the things we tried to do this last session was to curtail the powers of the governor through putting an amendment, constitutional amendment on the ballot to limit her power in a couple of different ways. I mean, one would have been to the ability to basically extend unlimited emergency power, which the Oregon Supreme Court essentially gave her unlimited power during emergencies, which is incredibly dangerous in my opinion. And the second issue is that the governor commuted or pardoned about 1,000 convicted people, felons, from our prison system. And, about 20 of them have reoffended already. And, we have concerns, the community has concerns about their safety. And, if this continues, we're going to have, we already do have a significant increase in crime, and gun violence is at an all-time high now. Portland has more murders than they've ever had. And, that you have to trace that back to the policy and what policymakers have done. And so the Republicans in the legislature wanted to make sure that there was a second look at these commutations and pardons. And that was another ballot initiative that we put out. We're going to try to put out there. The Democrats didn't want to go along with that. And, they supported the most unpopular governor in the country, our governor, in her, continued soft on crime policies, really. And we need to, I think we had done a good job through Measure 11 and other policies to make sure that we had the right people in prison and that they weren't preying on the citizens of Oregon. And I'm afraid that we've gone the other way. And, we're opposed to that as Senate Republicans. And so my colleague mentioned the assault on hospital workers bill and increasing the penalty for that. That would be one of the first bills I'd bring back in the 23 session, and we will bring it back, because we can't have our emergency workers and our hospital workers being assaulted in the emergency rooms and in the hospital rooms of our community hospitals all around the state. So we need to increase the penalty from a misdemeanor to a felony. So that bill, critically important. And, it passed the House. Congratulations to the House, bipartisan. And in the Senate, it didn't pass. And again, if Republicans were in control, that bill would have passed, and we'd have that in law today. I think another bill that didn't pass is more financial support for homeless youth in high school. I had a bill that would have piloted about 6 districts around the state in giving supports for graduation for homeless youth, because we're going to support these homeless youth one way or another. So we're either going to support them and launch them into a career and into a successful life, or we're going to support them in our system, either through law enforcement or through, DHS or what have you. We're going to be supporting them. So let's support them on the front end so they can support themselves as they go through life. And I think that's critical. So that bill did not pass. Also, more money for law enforcement. We have a significant problem in several areas. One of those, though, is due to the legalization of drugs in Oregon. We have significant illegal cartel and marijuana grows throughout the state, but especially in Southern Oregon. And we just can't cede the land and property and the lives of our citizens to the drug cartels. And so we need more law enforcement there. And, that bill was defeated, so we'll bring that back. And then we need to have more healthy forests. We want to make sure that we've done everything we can to stop wildfire in these wildfire prone areas. Obviously, the canyon here in Marion County experienced that in a significant way, just tragic. And we want to make sure that we're getting those forests thinned and as healthy as possible. And that was a bill that we had, and that bill also died. So we're going to bring that one back. And we've experienced that, of course, on the east side and in Southern Oregon as well. So, I think there's a lot of commonality there, but we need more effort in that regard. And then educational freedom. We need to keep our kids in school full time, 5 days a week. This idea that somehow that online for everybody, or we're going to take, there's districts that want to take Fridays off or whatever and have online. I mean, this is just ridiculous. And we're going to get further and further behind on our education system. So really important to do that, expand the opportunity for those who want to be able to have a virtual education. There should be opportunities for that, but that should be a choice. And in-person education is the choice that most parents make for their kids. And a lot of parents have moved to private education. And, we want to have a strong public education system, but you can't have that if you're not delivering on what needs to happen for our students. And so we have to have in-person instruction, and, the students and parents need to be comfortable with what's happening. They're currently not, and they don't feel like they're being listened to. And so we need to involve our parents more in the education and the curriculum on what's happening here in Salem. And then I feel like the budget was a significant issue, and there was bipartisan agreement on some of the spending. However, I would note that there was a lot of money spent, and we have a significant PERS debt, and very little was put to the PERS debt. And we also have a lawsuit that had been successful by Lynn County and about 13 other counties. And the state owes those counties over $1 billion. And that lawsuit is on appeal right now. And if the state loses that appeal, it'll be up to $1.2 billion. And there was no reserving for the potential of that lawsuit, which has been successful so far. And so if it's not reversed by one of the higher courts, the state's going to owe 13 counties $1.3 billion. And, that's significant. And so I think we need to be, more prudent with state resources. I would say, I'll just end on a positive note. There was a great bill that passed that I co-chief sponsored. It was a House bill with my Representative Jason Krupp, and it was about coordinated homeless response and grants to several localities around the state. And I think that's important because homelessness and housing is one of the biggest issues that we have besides lawlessness, crime, and public safety. And it's really important that we get people into more stable housing situations. And you can't do that without the coordination of every entity. And I would just comment that it's sad that we have to pass a bill to require that coordination, but nonetheless, some communities can do that well and others don't. And so where they're not doing it well, I think it's good to make sure that there's grants available and that we're making sure that everybody is coordinated in this effort to get people back into housing, because we can't continue with what's happening in our big cities and even some of our small cities around the state. And so thank you for the opportunity to be with you this morning. Really appreciate it. We look forward to your input, and hopefully there's time for questions. I don't know.
Thank you, Senator Knopp. Actually, there is one question from one of the chamber board members, Rasmussen sent a quick question, kind of addressed to all the legislators. So maybe it's kind of a yes or no, I suppose, but I'll just read it real quick. Do the legislators on the call support a one-topic special emergency session to suspend gas tax to help support businesses and working families with the explosion of costs at the pump? So I guess that's kind of a yes or no. And I think probably what we should just do is kind of reverse order, if that's okay. We'll go with Senator Knopp, Senator Patterson, Representative Moore Green, and then Representative Hoy.
The answer is yes, I would. There is a significant impact to Oregonians with the rise in gas prices. And so we should do what we can do. And so a temporary suspension, I think, of gas taxes would be appropriate.
Thank you. Senator Patterson?
These are very unprecedented times. And so absolutely, I think we would need to take a look at that. I just filled my little tiny car with $38 worth of gas, which just about knocked me out of the car. So definitely temporary look at this. I would be in favor of that.
Thank you. Representative Moore Green?
Thank you for the question, Alan. Yes, I would. I do think that's the sort of relief that Oregonians are looking for and would be spot on. My only caveat is special session. Those, they can be a slippery slope if we're not careful legislatively. So I would just put some sidebars around that. Let's get the relief and let's get in and get out and do it quickly. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Hoy?
Thank you. I definitely think it's something that we should take a look at. I do worry about the implications because that is how we pay for our roads. And so I would want to know how that might impact it, but I think it's definitely worth considering. I don't have a dog in the fight because I drive an electric car, but it's something we definitely need to take a look at.
Thank you, Representative Hoy. That's an interesting topic, actually. If people are driving electric cars, how are they contributing to the road tax? That's something that's always been curious to me, how that is offset. Not necessarily a question, I guess more of a statement, but Representative Hoy, please feel free to jump in.
There has been a pilot program to explore that exact thing, to pay basically you pay a fee via mileage for electric vehicles, but it has not been put into place widespread. It definitely is something we need to look at, given that the gas tax has been the way we've traditionally paid for our roads, and it's only right that we all pay for that, not just the people who drive non-electric vehicles.
Yeah, copy. Well, with that, there aren't any other questions. There's just a couple quick things. One, I would say it's interesting, and we have 40 people on the call, which is a nice number. But going back to Senator Knopp's comments about power of the legislature and having balance and that sort of thing, I'm always surprised that there's not 500 people on these calls when they have an opportunity to hear from the local legislators and be involved in these types of things. And I'm hopeful that that people wake up and are probably a little bit less apathetic moving forward and get involved in some of these things, because I think it's important. It's important for everybody. Along with that, it's probably a good segue. It's been mentioned about security for healthcare workers and some law enforcement and things of that nature. And it seems like a good time to maybe create that segue over to our conversation for Paige and Spencer, who are running for district attorney. And but before doing so, I just want to thank our four legislators for being on the call. Certainly, you're welcome to stay on the call and listen in on this. But we also know that everyone has busy schedules. So first and foremost, thank you for the four of you for being here. Always gracious to give us your time and participate with the Salem Chamber. So thank you.
Thank you.
So with that, why don't we do this real quick? We'll do a quick transition over to Spencer and Paige. And on our agenda today, we're really asking for both candidates to give us just a little bit of a bio on themselves, give us a quick kind of update on what's going on, and then we have some questions that are prepared for them. And looking at this agenda, why don't we start with Spencer Todd?
How you doing? Thanks, Jeff. Thanks everybody for being here, and I appreciate the conversation and the opportunity. My name's Spencer Todd. I am a public defender, is the kind of colloquial term. It's a little more complicated than that with consortiums and contracts and that sort of thing. But public defender here in Marion County. I've worked here for the past 8 years since I graduated from Willamette Law School in 2013. You know, it's a really important job, the district attorney role. For those of you that don't know, it's one of those things where I surprisingly get asked quite a bit, what does the DA even do? You know, it's kind of the chief law enforcement in the county after a police officer makes an arrest, files a report. It's ultimately up to the DA to decide what gets prosecuted and what doesn't. And obviously with that comes a lot of discretion, and there's a lot of things that can be done that are done, and that can be done that should be done that aren't. And so kind of the brief pillars of what I want to do differently, what I want to accomplish, and why you should vote for me. You know, the end goal on all of this is public safety. That is it. That is the thing. That's the mandate. That's what's required by the DA's office. That's the end game. You know, the other kind of things that the DA has to keep in mind are protecting the rights of victims and protecting the rights of all Oregonians. And you know, I think that the way we get that done, quite frankly, in right now times, is retaining good people in that office. It's reducing the caseload that currently exists, the backlog that exists, and trying to hold everyone accountable, not prosecuting, deciding to prosecute smaller crimes, broken windows, you know, crimes that are quality of life, things like that. As well as obviously still sending people that need to be sent. You know, the colloquial expression, bury people under the jail, the sex offenders, the murderers, the gun violence, the serious crimes that need to be sent have to be sent. I think that reducing caseloads is in a lot of ways the silver bullet. The four things that I want to accomplish kind of within the DA's office that I think caseloads gets us where we want to go are real support for victims. You know, actually listening to individual victims, and instead of telling them what they need, listen and, you know, ask, what do you need? Fewer cases lets us spend more time with each victim, helps us understand that many victims are previous defendants and many defendants are previous victims. I also think that we can save money, or at least do a better job of allocating our funds. You know, you got to be realistic about this whole thing. This is a kind of a question coming later, so I won't spend too much time on it, but there may not be more money coming. So you got to stretch the money that you have as best as you can. I also think that we need equal access to justice. Money should not be the deciding factor in either who gets prosecuted or what someone gets prosecuted for, or what the ultimate result of their case is. Money should not buy a get out of jail free card. And especially when a case drags on for a long time, the longer a case goes on, the easier it is for people with money to kind of game the system. And then I think the fourth thing is just really important, especially in today's kind of the era of where we live with policing. And that's, we need more police. We need to advance community policing, and we need to do a better job of bridging the gap between citizens and the police. I want to be transparent in everything I do, and I want to use the office to kind of have the conversation of, you know, the police are in this with us. The police want the same things that we want, and they want us to be safe. You know, I've met with a bunch of different chiefs of police over the past 6 months, trying to kind of get a better understanding of everything that's going on in the county. And, you know, the good cops hate bad cops as much as anybody does. And I think that we need to do a better job explaining that to the public, and try to get policing back to the, you know, the job that people want to do, instead of the job that right now a lot of these guys are doing because they're good public servants, even though they're getting kind of torn down. You know, like I said, I grew up in Salem. This is where I'm from. I'm sure many of you have heard that I'm a quote unquote Portland guy. It could not be further from the truth. I grew up here my entire life. After I graduated law school, I moved to Portland to live with my wife to make her commute a little easier. But every day I was still working down here. I couldn't tell you the first thing about practicing law in Portland. I kept my office here, and my willingness to work in this community was such that the commute was still worth staying down here. However, I obviously understood that the community expects more than that from their prosecutor. That's why I moved here. Right now, I'm living in an apartment, coming to you live from Commercial Street by Magoo's, but looking to get in a house when the time is right. The question on here: what separates you from your opponent, and why should we elect or support you in your race? I'm here to stay. This isn't the Salem that I grew up in. This isn't the Salem that it was 4 years ago, and we aren't safer now than we were 4 years ago. And I'm not on my way out the door. I'm not going to Black Butte. I'm not going to Eastern Oregon. I am here, and I really care about this community. And finally, I'm going to put in the hard work that is necessary to get the job done the way it should be done. I think my opponent and I both prioritize victims and public safety. We both want to hold people accountable, but I'm going to work longer hours. I'm going to work harder hours, and I'm going to do the job the way it's meant to be done. I'm going to take cases. I'm going to show up to the office every day. I'm going to make myself available to cover for trials for other lawyers in the office. I'm going to provide mentorship to young lawyers. And I'm going to treat everybody in the office with the respect that they deserve. And, whether that's the chief trial team leader or whether that's the secretary, it doesn't matter to me. If you show up and you do your job well, that's all I'm going to ask, and that's all I'm going to expect. Thank you.
Thank you, Spencer. Paige.
Hi, thanks everybody. Yeah, lovely to be here. Thank you very much. We have a long list of questions, and I'm looking at the time, and it's really clear we're not going to get to all that. So I'm going to try to just introduce myself to you and let you know who I am and what I do. The biggest distinction between me and my opponent is I'm actually the district attorney. I have worked in this office as a prosecutor my entire 23-year career. I started in this office actually as an adorable young law clerk while still at Willamette. I was adorable back then, and now I have the wrinkles and 4 kids later to prove it. I've been doing this a very long time. I live in this community. I raise my children here who go to Salem Kaiser schools. We live in South Salem. I have lived here my entire adult career, and I'm committed to this community. I know many of you on this call, thankful for the legislators, by the way, that we're here. That's a really tough job. Aside from being the district attorney of Marion County, which I have done since 2008, before that I was a line prosecutor for my entire career. I'm also in my 3rd year as president of the Oregon District Attorneys Association, which puts me working with those legislators you heard from earlier this morning. Really grateful for the work that they do. And it's really essential to the work that I do. My job is to execute the law. It's actually to follow the law. They make the law. And so those policy decisions dictate every day what your local law enforcement, your local prosecutors are able to do in your community. And that has a huge impact on what we can do with crime and how we respond to it in this community. My question was, what kind of are your top priorities? At the very top of the chat, I put my website in there. It's clear, like I said, we're not going to get to everything today. So if you really want to know what I've been up to, what I stand for, and why this position and specifically public safety in this community is so important to me, you can look there. But in short order, the DA's job and our unofficial motto at the DA's office is to do the right thing at the right time for the right reason. The DA and prosecutors are the only lawyers in the bar whose actual ethical duty is to seek justice. We don't have particular clients. We work for the community. We work simply to keep our community safe. And so that's a really short way, a really easy way, right thing, right time, right reason, of saying that the reason you need a good DA and the reason that you should care about who your local DA is you need somebody who focuses on accountability. I think it is clear as business owners, if you own a business downtown, I know many of you do, if you're selling real estate, in this community, as I know many of you do, you want to do that in a safe way. If you live here like I do and you raise children here, you want to be able to go to work, run a business, let them go to school, let them go to parks in a safe community. That has to happen only with accountability. And you want a district attorney whose goal it is to hold everybody accountable. Accountability has a huge spectrum. And I know one of the questions today was about low-level offenses versus high-level offenses that might require prison. And so accountability comes in many forms. Under my leadership in this office, we lead many treatment courts. I was the district attorney assigned to the Veterans Court for years. I have watched what we can do with lower-level livability crimes, how we can intervene in people's lives and use the criminal justice system as a bridge and not a barrier to treatment and to healthier lives. That's one side of accountability. The other side of accountability is making sure that violent criminals, physically, sexually violent criminals, people who prey upon our loved ones, upon our children, go to prison. And those are the people in Oregon and under Oregon law that we do put in prison. The reality is those lower level offenses under Oregon law aren't really prison eligible anyway. We have to, and it's my obligation to find other options for them. I brought the LEAD program, for example, to Marion County with the former Commissioner Janet Carlson. Together, we brought law enforcement assisted diversion to this community. That attaches a navigator to police out in our communities and gets them right from the point of contact with the police officer right into diversionary programs, treatment, social services, housing, medical appointments. That happens on the street with some amazing navigators. And 4 years later, we're still running that program and looking to expand it under my leadership and with cooperation with our county commissioners. I'm really proud of that level of accountability. The other thing that when you talk about right thing, right time, right reason, is you need experienced leadership. This job is not for somebody who has only been a lawyer for a few years working for his father's law firm. I run a very large law firm. I have 100 employees. I have 50 victim assistants, volunteers who do the work of about another 14 full-time employees, working directly with victims hand in hand every day from crime to sentence and beyond. I run 5 divisions with over a $15 million budget annually. That means that I run not just criminal prosecution, but juvenile delinquency. It means that I run an entire victim assistance division where we really do focus on victims' needs and what they want and what they need and how the criminal justice system can come along beside them to get them to healthier lives, healthier decisions. I run a support enforcement division that collects over $18 million every year for children and families in this community, specifically child support, so that those kids can grow up well-resourced and with the resources that they need in order to lead healthier lives. And I run the medical examiner's office, which is the office dedicated to investigating all unattended, meaning non-hospitalized deaths in this county. It is a lot of divisions. It is not for someone just starting out in their career. I have dedicated my entire life to this work. That's experienced leadership. I know what it takes to run this office. And it's not simple. This is hard work. Finally, you really need somebody with integrity. You need somebody who is tested and tried in that world. Integrity means making good choices for the people of this community. I have 23 years of experience doing that, of making good decisions under these rules and these laws, and working for this community. I am committed here. I see someone's asking a question about LEAD verifiable stats. Yes, there are verifiable stats. I actually have monthly stats that come from our sheriff's office. I can share that back with Zachary and he can send those out. But the results of the LEAD program are actually really amazing. It significantly reduces recidivism in those that are actually in the program, but it's also done things like identified health problems that people have that they never would have even known, that they had cancer, for example, had they not been connected to a navigator and treatment because of law enforcement and this program and getting them in it. It's really amazing what these navigators do every day. And I'd be happy to share that with you in that actual form. So
That'd be great.
that's me in a nutshell.
Great. Yeah, anything that you can provide to Zachary that he can then shoot out to the public policy
I'd be happy to do that.
distribution list, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Let's jump into a couple questions here that you've been provided. We're going to do, and then I think Elizabeth has a couple questions. We'll circle back around to those here when we get there. But Paige had mentioned low-level crimes. I just want to circle back around and just get that asked and answered. You kind of touched on it. I'd like Spencer to be able to touch on it. But the question is, for low-level crimes, is prison the best option in light of high costs per inmate and high recidivism rate? Excuse me. Would medical counseling and other programs be better use for resources and better result for the community? So with that, Spencer, let's just hear your thought. Paige kind of jumped on that and touched on it for a minute. We'll circle back to Paige here in just a moment.
Sure. Well, as Paige said, a lot of the low-level crimes are not prison eligible, but to the extent that we're talking about jail, or to the extent that we're talking about low-level felonies that could be prison eligible, to directly answer the question of is prison/jail the best option, the answer is it depends. It's got to be a case-by-case basis. As for whether medical or counseling, drug treatment sort of programs would be a better use of resources. One of the things that Shane Griggs said at her campaign kickoff was she talked about the mental health crisis and the prevalence of people with mental health issues in our jails and our prisons. Obviously, that's not where they should be. And there are treatment options. And in theory, there are good treatment options available for mental health, for addiction, for anger management, and for criminal thinking. We want the cheaper option for probation when we can, for a bunch of reasons, not just because it's better for the person, not just because it's cheaper for us, but it turns the individual into a productive member of society. It turns them into a taxpayer instead of someone that we have the burden of prosecuting. But it still depends on the case. There are certain cases where, treatment's been tried and failed, or treatment's been tried and failed multiple times, or probation's been tried and failed. I mean, the sad nature of the beast is some people aren't ready to get sober, or if we don't have the mental health structures necessary to, for example, some mid-level locked group home where they're not bad enough that they need to go to the Oregon State Hospital, but they clearly can't be on the street. They need bed management. We don't really have a lot of options available. And if they commit a crime, that's bad enough. I mean, that's why Shane's talking about their existence in prison, because we don't really have another option. But the overarching thing has to be public safety. And so that's why it depends. As for criteria to use on kind of making a determination about, prison versus probation, do we try treatment? Do we try to give someone an option? Shane also mentioned mental health issues and co-occurring mental health issues are best addressed as evidence-based treatment practices. And so obviously to the extent that we could have evidence-based analyses, that would be preferable. There's a lot of things that the community and that the county does. We can get evaluations from local treatment provider groups, basically, that will do an evaluation. It's called an optional probation evaluation. They also do anger management, domestic violence, things like that, that kind of assess the needs of the individual. And then there are some other courts. There's Veterans Court, Mental Health Court, Drug Court that have kind of more intensive supervision. There's the LEAD program, as Ms. Clarkson mentioned. There's also a 416 program, which is another diversionary kind of intense program. But one of the problems we have is on the day-to-day lower level stuff that we're talking about, treatment's just not always what you would think it is. A lot of times it's not evidence-based. A lot of times it's not really making anybody any better. I had a client that his first conviction was at 67 years old, and he got alcohol classes, and they were truly do a homework assignment, show up the next week, pee in a cup, get a new homework assignment. And that's not getting people sober. That's not doing what we need. So, to some extent, and that's not necessarily within the purview of the DA, but to some extent, we need better treatment. And then, yes, the ultimate answer is better treatment that can get people sober, that can get people medicated, that can get people, to be productive members of society is a good answer. There's also programs from other places that, I think that we take from. There's a rider program in Idaho that's kind of an intensive 9 months pre-sentencing thing where you can kind of put your money where your mouth is and prove that you're going to get sober and that you're going to do the treatment. And if you do, you're good to go. Lincoln County in Oregon has a really good domestic violence program, much more kind of inclusive and wraparound than what we currently have. And I think that there's things that can be done with that. So that's, the bottom line, unfortunately, is it still depends on the case by case basis. I mean, the dream is to save money. The dream is you don't have to send somebody to prison and that they can be, turned into what we want them to be, which is a law abiding citizen that pays taxes, but that ain't always the case.
Oh,
Thank you, Spencer.
just really quick,
Yep.
What I always tell people again, and in my breadth and depth of experience doing this work, when a file crosses my desk, it is usually because we have failed elsewhere in services to that individual, whether that's in early childhood intervention, whether it's in other treatment options, whether it's in mental health systems that have failed people, whether it's supporting families and children in our schools or in programs like Family Building Blocks. When I see a case, it's usually because something has failed elsewhere. So the easy answer is, yeah, we want everybody to get treatment. But sometimes the criminal justice system is not the best place to do that. What's great about talking to groups like this is you all can mobilize and support the community systems that we need. We have some great community-based programming in this community, of which I am happy to support and be a part of. I see Tammy Getch, another one of my department heads in the county here on this meeting. She's well aware of the community systems, and part of my job as district attorney is to work collaboratively with all of those groups through our Marion County Public Safety Coordinating Council, through other family support systems, through other community-related boards and commissions on which I sit and support. That is all part of being the district attorney. It is all part of my experience. But we need to do better. The bottom line is, if somebody is coming before a police officer and then that file hits my desk, there are things we should have done better elsewhere. And part of being the district attorney is recognizing where those failings are, and for starting programs like LEAD or supporting other community outreach systems that really get to the mentally ill in our community, those struggling with behavioral health. I will tell you that decriminalization of hard drugs in this community is going to have a ripple effect on us in Salem and on Marion County. And that was a grand experiment that we as Oregonians collectively decided as voters, but that is having a direct impact on untreated folks with substance use disorder out in our community who are self-medicating their mental health issues and committing crime as a result to support those habits or simply because they feel like they have no other options. We need to do better, and we need to take a look at those kinds of impacts on our community. And when things aren't working, when those experiments aren't accurate, when they are having really deteriorating results in our community, we need to go to our legislators. We need to tell these folks on this call that this is not working in our communities. Part of being the district attorney is making sure that those policies are strong and are supporting public safety. So yeah, there are a lot of things we should be doing that can absolutely help those that are struggling out in our community. But the answer is not just with police and prosecutors. We have to support those other safety net systems.
Yeah, Paige, you mentioned the decriminalization of drugs. That was shocking to me that actually passed. I was really surprised. I would have put money on any bet in Vegas that would have never passed. So when it did, I thought,
yeah.
oh yeah.
And I've said this before, Jeff, and I'll say it again. It was passed because of exactly these issues. We as Oregonians care about our community. We care about other people. And the reason that measure passed is frankly because I think Oregonians were lied to. That was a very slick, out-of-state, New York-funded marketing campaign that convinced all of us that people were going to get treatment if they didn't go to jail. The reality is those two things are not connected at all under ballot measure 110. And between February and December, only 55 people even called a phone number to seek treatment. 55 in the entire state, not in Marion County, in the entire state. That's not working. That's not getting people treatment. In our treatment courts and through probationary sentences where folks had a lot of motivation to actually get treatment, we had way more than 55 people across the state that were seeking help because they were encouraged to do so by a criminal justice system. Is the criminal justice system the best way for people to get treatment? Probably not. And I'm the first person to raise up my hand and say that we need folks to get treatment, and I would rather them get healthy than be in our jail. But when it was the only system we had, we can't tear that down without replacing it with something better. And ballot measure 110 didn't do that. And I was vocal about it before, but I'll say it again now. I really think it's dangerous for our community.
Thank you. And you were right. We are going to be running out of time. There are a couple questions. One last question I think that would be good to get addressed. And then I would like to address the questions in the chat as well. And Spencer, we'll go back to you here. What is the plan, going back to Senator Knope's comments that a lot of convicted felons, I think was the comment, were released by the governor, and approximately 50 have recommitted crimes and that sort of thing. So the question is, what is the plan to hold repeat offenders accountable moving forward, or with you at the lead?
Sure, thanks. Well, and this I think actually kind of ties in nicely to the measure 110 thing. The quick answer to that question is, you give people a carrot and a stick, and hopefully the carrot works, but sometimes you need the stick. It's a somewhat callous analogy, but sometimes the only way to hold a repeat offender accountable is to send them to prison. That's the true nature of the beast, and that's the world that we live in. I'm sure that many of you have had someone in your lives that has experienced addiction, and you want to give them a chance, and sometimes you want to give them more than one chance, and sometimes you want to give them 10 chances, but eventually you run out of chances, and the only thing that you can do is the hard thing, and that needs to happen. That's the bottom line answer for how we hold people accountable that are repeat offenders that have bad histories. Oregon sentencing grid does that a little bit for us with criminal histories, where if you have committed crimes in the past, it is easier to send you to prison for longer. One of the points I'd make on the measure 110 thing that's just a small amount of pushback is what we were doing before, arresting people for possession charges and suspending their licenses and fining them and sending them to jail because you could not go to prison for a possession, wasn't working either. It was an incredible waste of our resources. And by the way, if a guy that has a drug problem goes to jail for 15 days, he's going to get out and use drugs in 15 days. So we spent 15 days doing that. I'm not saying that drugs should have been legalized or that 110 is the right way to do it. It's obviously not. It could have been way, way better. But the other thing didn't work either. That's kind of, one of my other frustrations with this whole thing is, we're on this call saying we need to be tough on crime. We need to be tough on crime. And that is absolutely true. We need to hold offenders accountable. And at the highest level on these serious offenses, you got to bury them under the jail. That is the truth. But we already are tough on crime. We already send people to jail. That is something that we do. That is something that Marion County does better than anybody else almost in the entire state. And we're not safer for it. I mean, look outside your window, see what has become of Salem and of the county in the last 4 years. And, yes, some of it is since 110, but it's before 110. And it's not just related to drug legalization. We already are failing on these things. We already are failing on holding people accountable. And, so many charges don't get prosecuted. So many lawyers are leaving that office that, we need working for us, and it's causing caseloads to balloon, and it's impacting the quality of each individual case. If I go to trial against somebody as a district attorney, if I'm prosecuting someone for a gun crime or a sex crime or a murder, some serious case, I want to have as much time as possible to prepare, and I want each of my deputies to have as much time as possible to prepare, and that ain't it right now. They are overworked, they are understaffed. The people that show up quit. People that have been there a long time are leaving, and so we got to do something different. And the real way to hold people accountable is successful prosecutions, and that's the only way to get it done, is to have good people do the job, and not just have my employees do the job, but me personally going into court with the other team's playbook now and doing the thing myself.
I'll address the repeat property offender issue. I think it was really addressed probably best by Senator Knopp earlier today. So over the last 3 years, and again, I've been doing this for 25 years if you count my clerkship, I have never seen a harder time to be a police officer or a prosecutor than has occurred over the last 2 or 3 years. And the pandemic is only part of it, right? You all know you're all faced with the same struggles that we are. We're running big businesses, and it's really difficult in these situations to do that successfully. But specifically to public safety, as police and prosecutors, we enforce the law. And what we have noticed, what I have seen over the last 3 years, is that we don't have the tools to do what we need to do to keep you all safe. So when the question is, what is happening out there? You have to look to the 3 branches of government and the way that we have gradually lost the tools in our toolbox to do what we need to do. We talked already about the governor releasing thousands, and that's only in her COVID releases and her wildfire releases. I get clemency applications every day where this governor, our executive, is releasing extremely dangerous offenders out into our street. We're not talking about people who've stolen a bicycle. We're talking about people who are rapists and murderers. That is what she is choosing to release. She has the authority and the power to do it. My office objects to it. We send letters as requested by her with victim impact statements attached to it, and they are summarily dismissed and ignored. Her soft on crime agenda affects us locally. That is an executive branch decision. The legislature, as our representatives and the senator pointed out today, we have seen a number of legislatively passed measures that have made it impossible for police to do their job. Just this short session, there was a bill passed that will make it unlawful for police officers to stop somebody who doesn't use their headlights at night. That is a public safety nightmare. It is a risk to our communities, not just because driving without your lights at night is dangerous. It is. It's also indicative of something wrong with the driver, like they're drunk, like they're impaired, like they're hiding from police. Ted Bundy was actually caught because he turned off his headlights at night. These are dangerous decisions coming out of a legislature, a legislature with a really bad idea of what it means to be public safety representatives. I will say, because I know we have our representatives, 2 senators and 2 representatives on this call, every single one of them care about public safety of this community. And so when I say the legislature is passing dangerous bills, please pay attention to how they voted, because they are great and communicative with me on those issues. All of them really do care about what's happening here locally, and they're all very strong on public safety, and need to give a shout out to all of them for that. So you have the executive branch, you have the legislative branch, we also have a judicial branch. The judicial branch interprets the law and therefore sets policies. We've had a number of cases come out of our Supreme Court and Court of Appeals that has been extremely damaging to public safety. One example would be that the legislature passed a repeal of Measure 11 for juveniles. These are juveniles that commit really serious violent offenses. They promised us when it passed at the legislature that it wouldn't be retroactive, meaning juveniles who had been previously convicted through the correct and lawful court process would not be released because of this new measure. Well, the governor went ahead and released them. And with death penalty, Senate Bill 1013, again, we had a court system that went ahead and found that the death penalty repeal for most types of death penalty cases would be applied retroactively, meaning most folks on death row were no longer going to be on death row and were no longer death penalty eligible. That is the voters saying one thing, approving a death penalty, the legislature changing the rules, and a court system that set the policy that it was going to apply to every case that had ever been found to be appropriate for the death penalty. So this is all 3 branches of government that have made it really hard for your local police officers and your prosecutors to hold people accountable, to do our very core mission of doing the right thing at the right time for the right reason. That isn't DA policy. That I don't get to set those rules. Those rules come from elsewhere. I have to follow them. And we are losing our tools. And I think it was Rich Duncan in the chat that said it's just time to reset what we want out of a public safety system, because without public safety, the rest doesn't matter. You can't run a business that's safe if we don't have public safety. I can't run a family and you can't go to school. So those are really important things, and we need to be aware of what your public safety professionals and your law enforcement professionals are able to do and what tools we have.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I will just say we are 1 minute away, and we really try at the chamber to be patient and give everyone time, but yet respect everyone's time and stay on time. So you are right that we were not going to get through nearly as many questions. We probably should have dedicated a full public policy to this. And perhaps after the election, we can do something like that. Zachary and I and the group can talk about those things. But I just want to highlight real quickly what's being said in the chat by, it seems like Elizabeth, Corey, Rich. I would echo the same thing. And I think that's a small representative of the majority are getting tired and need some things to change. And yes, that probably comes from the legislative level, but collectively there needs to be a reset, I think was how Rich put it, and I would agree. So to both Elizabeth and Corey, I'm sorry that your specific question didn't get answered, but I think it was kind of addressed a little bit there in what was said. And so just in closing real quickly, I just would like to say thank you to all four legislators who joined us today, as well as both Spencer and Paige. And from the chamber, from myself, I wish you all good luck in your respective races that people are running for, and best of luck. And thank you for giving us the time here at the chamber. And I just want to turn it back over quickly to Zachary for any kind of closing discussion. And Zachary, maybe you want to mention the next public policy meeting and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I wanted to thank everybody again for being on today. Our speakers, our panelists, our two candidates. Thank you guys so much. One of the things that we've discussed that we're going to be trying to put together here in relatively short order, we're going to be looking at hosting a kind of a special public policy meeting with all the different candidates for our area for the Oregon State Legislature. So I'll be following up with more information on that once we get a date identified. Next month, we will be hearing from our candidates for Salem City Council. We're not going to have the mayors on that call. We're going to be doing a special forum for that in April. So more information on that to come as well. And that will, the one for City Council will be on Thursday, April 7th. So thank you guys again for all being on here. We truly appreciate it and hope you guys have a fantastic day.
Thank you.
Thank you.